A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to this edition of the Evening Review. My name is Tewan Jabala, your host for tonight. Let's have a look at today's front page of Namibian Sun.
Paratus Mobile LTE. Everything you want, whenever you want it. Start uploading, downloading, liking and sharing all your experiences with the world. Starting from 100 Namibian dollars per month including VAT for prepaid or 345 Namibian dollars per month excluding VAT for postpaid. Get online with high-speed internet the way you want it. Visit na.paratus.africa for more information.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Tonight in the studio, we are joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Government Institutions Pension Fund, Mr. David Nuyoma, to talk to us, of course, about the fund and anything that is within the domain of pension funds in the country. Mr. Nuyoma, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. First things first, Mr. Nuyoma, it's a tough moment for our country, financially speaking, and one just wonders what is the status? How healthy is the GIPF as a fund at the moment?
Well, the fund is actually healthy.
Yeah.
Incidentally, this morning I was just looking at our financial report,
Yeah.
the investment report, as at the end of January.
Yeah.
And year on year, we had growth. In this turbulent time, you won't believe it, we had almost 10% growth.
I see.
And for the fund of the magnitude of GIPF, that is serious growth. We had an impact in March last year when the whole world shut down. All the markets closed down, but from April onwards, April in particular was a spectacular month. We recouped anything that was lost in March.
Yeah.
From there, we had an upward trajectory. We came to 108 billion. At the end of January 2021, we grew to 131.5 billion. So you won't believe it's about, that is 23 billion in about 9 months, 23 billion.
It's a lot.
It took some doing.
Yeah.
Last year, people were saying I even lost weight.
Yeah.
Because we had to be fixed.
Yes.
And I think perhaps because we were all restricted in our specific homes,
Yes.
we became so focused that we were able to grow that fund. We had to move money, and it paid off.
Indeed.
The policy, I think the investment policy that we have has really proven its robustness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed. So for I mean, to what do you then, I know that you just mentioned your last point, what might have contributed to that, but because you're a member-based institution, of course, in the public service space, we haven't seen too many closures of business or retrenchments. But I still wonder, in a COVID period, what would have been that catalyst for growth?
It's a number of things. We, in April, the big powers, the United States, members of the European Union, and to some extent China, they made very positive pronouncements towards supporting their own economies. Here in Namibia, if you may recall, there was also a stimulus package announced.
Yes.
And in the context of investment world, these kind of pronouncements, they give comfort in the minds of investors, and therefore continue to participate in the market. And that is really what has happened. In Namibia, we continued to have a bullish position. If you may recall, in 2019, we made a commitment at the investment conference of 5.4 billion. And during the past 18 months or so, we have been making good to that, to an extent that we committed. In other words, we assigned specific managers to invest 4.9 billion. So these are the things that at the end of the day culminate in the kind of growth that we see. Yes.
There is also, I do not recall which instruments that are guiding this specific question, but there is some sort of requirement of how much of your investments must be made locally.
Yes.
How is that situation? Last time I heard there was still some sort of gap that still needed to be filled. How is the situation at the moment?
Yes, it's in terms of the NAMFISA requirement, domestic asset requirement. It requires that 45% of pension funds money be invested locally. At the time of the announcement, we were fully compliant. But with the exchange rate movements, it has been up and down. This morning when I looked, we were at 42.6% compliant. So it requires us to do some repatriation of money into the local economy. But you would appreciate that a fund of our magnitude to repatriate plus minus 2% or so, it's a lot of money, and one need to put it somewhere where that money will continue to gain positive returns. Therefore, we have to do it in a responsible and prudent manner so that we do not lose value in the process.
Indeed. And I know that GIPF actually plays a very critical role in this economy based on what your investments and your acquisition of stakes in different institutions has proven. But is there any greater role that can be played by GIPF? Maybe where you feel, for example, that whether it's from a legislation point of view to say if the legislation was this way, we could do much more or whatever. Is there more that GIPF can do?
Oh, yes, definitely. As part of our strategy and part of what we do, perhaps we do it quietly, is advocacy, especially in the space of capital markets development, and also with regard to the availing of opportunities locally. For example, we have made we have a policy on infrastructure development. And we even, to an extent that part of the 5.4 billion that we pledged was for infrastructure. We have allocated money, serious money, but we realized that the environment requires certain enhancements. That is the investment environment in infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we are engaging with key stakeholders so that it becomes much more healthy to invest in infrastructure. And if you just think a little bit, for example, in energy, energy has become to me, the energy sector, the benchmark sector, where they have their house in order. And as a result, we have invested significantly in the alternative energy projects in the country. At the moment, we have invested up to 7 solar plant energy projects in the country because the environment is right. We want to see the same in the water sector. We want to see the same in other sectors as well, like the road. What is it that can be done? And especially the water sector, there is huge potential in my view. This is a thirsty country all the time. We shouldn't be complacent when we see it's raining for 1 month. Much of the time, we are the driest country in sub-Saharan Africa, or south of the Sahara. So we need to be much more proactive from an investment perspective. And we believe the environment needs to be sharpened for us to do so.
Indeed.
Yes, and perhaps the other thing that we have also done from a role-playing side is when we started investing in unlisted investment, that also has given the regulator, NAMFISA, and the Ministry of Finance, the perhaps the comfort that that is an area that the rest of the industry can participate. We were for a very long time perhaps the only significant player as a pension fund in the unlisted space. But now I see it has become regulatory and mandatory for us to invest at least a certain portion in unlisteds.
Indeed. Now, you are in an institution, Mr. Nuyoma, that is doing so well within the context of what you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
But there is also so many perceptions.
Yes.
How people perceive GIPF and the role it ought to play in their eyes. I give an example. Last week there was a statement issued by the Independent Patriots for Change, IPC, saying GIPF, NamPower and NamWater should collectively pool resources together and help bail out Namibia. From just the manner in which you operate, whether it's policy-wise, legislation, from all those perspectives within which you operate, is this something even remotely possible?
Well, we, as a significant player in the economy, right now we have plus minus 53 billion Namibian dollars in the Namibian economy. In virtually everything, especially those sectors that we believe have got potential to give us a return. The way we operate, we start from, we have members to take care of. So we then, on the basis of that, craft an investment policy that can meet the short, medium, and long-term liabilities that comes from those members. So, in doing so, however, we have come to realize we can also have socio-economic impact. And by investing in those projects and sectors that have got potential to give us a healthy return. So, in event there is any given project that has got the characteristics of being sustainable in the short, medium, and long term, we have no quarrel with that. And I think even the regulator would not have a problem with that. There must be sustainability yardstick, financially, economically, and socially, that are clear and that can comfort us. And the income stream potential must be clearly defined, and the sources thereof must be clear, and for us to be able to have the comfort, because we do not want a situation where at any given time the fund, even though we are a defined benefit fund, in other words guaranteed by the employers, we do not want to be irresponsible and come one day to the employer and say, sorry, you have to pay for the benefit. We should do it from the proceeds of our prudent investment policy.
Indeed. Then the next question, Mr. Nuyoma, is there's always these perceptions. I mean, it's not even perceptions, it's actually the truth that our country right now, in terms of liquidity, is struggling due to a number of factors.
Yes.
In terms of how you operate, can you, for example, fund the budget shortfalls of our country? The Minister of Finance will soon announce his 2021-2022 national budget. In situations like that, where the government, which I know that there are many definitions of whether GIPF is a state-owned institution or not, a parastatal or not, but is there anything that the fund can do in situations like that to say, okay, government, you're in trouble, here is our kind of assistance to help you?
It won't be done in that way.
Yeah.
What we do as part of our asset mix, we have equities, we have bonds, we have properties, we have cash. So in the bond market, there are private sector bonds. Banks, companies, big companies do issue bonds, and we buy them. These are basically secured instruments that are issued, and before an entity issue them, they have to be assessed technically on the repayability potential and probability to repay. Likewise, government, not only our government, all governments do play in the bond market through the Bank of Namibia. And the fund has been active in the bond market, but we have a cut-off benchmark that X percentage of our funds cannot be exposed to a given asset class and to a given single entity. And that is done for sakes of risk management. The old adage says, don't keep all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
It's the same philosophy that we use. So in that case, we are already active in the bond market. And in event our investment space allows that there is still space, we can still participate as we have been participating before. And so far, for the past 30 years since our existence, that relationship has been very positive. There has been no incident of government or government bonds not being honored. And I have to say that it's not only us we participate. Other active players in the market do that. The banks buy to the best of their ability. In fact, there is competition to the scramble for bonds when they come on the market. Because usually you are assured you have your capital plus your return upfront agreed. And you cannot get it better than that anyway, particularly in this volatile environment.
Another debate, Mr. Nuyoma, that dominated the discourse lately was the push by some sections that your members be able to or be allowed to access a portion of their pensions to acquire houses and whatnot. I know that you responded, but while you are here today,
Yes.
I'll again ask you to maybe put it into context.
Yeah.
What can be done and what cannot be done when a request like that is advanced to GIPF?
Actually, we have been very much aware, first of all, that there are many of our members who need access to housing.
Yeah.
And already a decision was taken in 2013 by the fund that we should do everything possible and within the realm of the law and the regulations, assist members accordingly. And we have to look at the most feasible way to do it without burdening the members at the point of their exit so that their pension is still intact and they need it. I can tell you that, Toivo, when one comes to the age of retirement, that is your time of most vulnerability.
Yes.
You need something. And in today's world where we have nucleus families, no longer the old way of living, the children, they go, they are on their own, you are on your own as a parent, they won't look after you.
Yeah.
You have to look after yourself. So if you damage your earning potential through the pension, it will be a pity. And we as an organization will be judged harshly. But we have considered a viable, or we have looked at a different solution, and we came up with a mortgage financing solution that we are doing through an identified partner. Initially, what we wanted to do was to have it including the unproclaimed areas. But there was a section in the law that prohibited that. So in Section 19 of the Pension Funds Act, there is very restrictive and prescriptive. And this is not only for GIPF, it is with all pension funds, even your own pension fund, if you look at it, it will probably have the same restriction that any borrowing or taking of money from a pension is not allowed except for housing, either guaranteed by the pension or through a mortgage. We have taken the option of guaranteeing it through the mortgage, and that is the option we have gone. But that was to say, we'll do that up to a certain point and review. That right now we are in a review stage where we look at, can we do anything else? And meanwhile, we know that the legislative environment changed in 2018, where the clause that restricted unproclaimed areas have been removed. That opens up the possibility of supporting members backed by pension and to have housing even in unproclaimed areas. And we are looking at that. So it's not that it's not happening, it's happening. And perhaps just to say that I'll be happy if one day you can invite Dr. Martin Winga here, and just to talk about this thing of housing. There are good covenants in there that are beneficial to our members. And if one studies it carefully, there are differences between what you get from the commercial bank and what you get through First Capital, that is the transmission vehicle that we are using for this purpose. And yeah, let me leave it there.
Okay. No, thank you for that clarity, because I think it got so heated in recent weeks. Maybe that gives a different perspective. One last subject that I want to engage you, Mr. Nuyoma, on is another one that you addressed quite extensively,
Yes.
I think, at a press conference in 2019, I remember, if I remember correctly. And it was a development capital portfolio. That through which so many millions were allocated to different entities, and there was this whole thing about it not having, or it having been lost, all of it.
Yes.
And you came out more than a year ago to say that you actually made profits on that, and that. But even after that long press conference that you held,
Yes.
the accusation remains, refuses to die.
Yes.
What is the status of DCP? Is it a closed case? No one is being pursued. GIPF got 100% of its investment, or maybe not 100%, but a substantial amount of it. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. No, thank you very much for asking that question. And first of all, this happened in between 1995 and 2005. It's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
And 660 million was invested in unlisted program. At the time, it used to be called Development Capital Portfolio, hence the name DCP.
Yes.
And then the board in 2005, they stopped to see if this thing is working. They realized that there are weaknesses. And part of it is that some of the businesses that were invested in did not perform as required. There were 21 businesses. And of these 21 businesses, 12 performed not to the desired effect, with 3 of them having totally failed. In other words, only 3 of those totally failed. But to cut a long story short, overall, 1.1 billion was realized out of the investment of 660, thus having left a profit of 458 million Namibian dollars. So there were lessons out of that. And part of that was how best do we move forward without necessarily freezing to a point of no action anymore in the unlisted space. And then came new approaches that we are currently utilizing through the regulator and so forth. The question that you posed was, what now? Since the Prosecutor General pronounced herself in August 2019, we also, it was the fund that laid the charge through the police, we then went back to ask, what now? Does it mean these cases are closed? And it is my understanding that the response that we got from the law enforcement agencies is that not totally. There are still some cases that the law enforcement agencies are investigating, and they are at various stages. So, and that is where we are. But what has happened, the process through the Companies Act have been exhausted. For example, liquidation, sale of assets, and whatever that was supposed to have done. And that is what has led to the proceeds being realized in some of those companies. So that is where we are. And we look forward to the day when this matter will be closed, become a closed chapter. But it's, we have learned our lessons from it. And it is just wise for us to not to forget and to say nothing happened. Something happened, and from which we can learn.
Indeed. The very last question, I thought this would be this one is the very last one.
Okay.
In a fragile economy that we are in, we have learned through history of our country that where there is money, there is always a lot of commotion, scrambling. How often do you have to, as a professional,
Yes.
in your space,
Yeah.
how often did you have to, defend yourself and the fund against it's not intervention, political, my English is gone, but people, from the powerful people, trying to intervene in your space, trying to tell you what to do with the funds that you have at your disposal.
Yes.
How often do you get to actually say, no, this will not happen, this is how we operate, like that?
Yeah. No, in fact, I've been in the public finance space for quite a while now.
Yes.
If you may recall, I had the honor of starting the Development Bank of Namibia from scratch.
Yes.
And there was a lot of money there, money exchanging hands on a daily basis. And we managed not to have any of our judgments politicized. And we kept to the terms of reference. And I must say, at the GIPF, despite the magnitude of the fund as it is, I must commend the government of Namibia because they are the employer of our members, the significant employer of our members. There are 14 other members also. At no time were I directed as the principal officer and CEO, nor my chairman or chairperson, directed to finance or to direct the funds in a particular manner. And I think that is what has led to the robust growth of the fund, to a position that if you were to research currently, just go and research, not many funds in the world, not only in Africa, in the world, are at the same financial strength as the GIPF. It's because of that respect of space between the employer and the pension fund. Those terms of reference have been respected. Obviously, in the space of human beings, there may be individuals here and there that may pronounce themselves one way or the other, but we have to, we have been around and we know what is to be done. And the best thing is, as I remember one day I had an engagement long time ago with President Pohamba. He told me that we'll come to you, but you keep to your terms of reference. If you don't keep to your terms of reference, we'll ask you, why did you break your own terms of reference? So that advice we have kept, and so far, so good.
Indeed. Mr. Nuyoma, thank you very much for coming through.
It's a pleasure indeed, and thank you.
Thank you. That is David Nuyoma. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Government Institutions Pension Fund, GIPF, talking to us about the state of the fund and also clearing a lot of air around how the fund operates. Thank you for watching.